Ozzy Osbourne didn't just make rock history, he defined it. And for all the chaos he unleashed on stage, behind the scenes he carried grudges sharp enough to shred steel. Before his death, the Prince of Darkness left behind a now infamous list. 6 bands he despised, with a passion forged from betrayal, mockery, and decades of backstage warfare. After Judas Priest and Bon Jovi, 3 more names stood scorched into that blacklist. These weren't minor disagreements. They were declarations of war. And in Ozzy's world, you don't survive the wrath of the Osbournes without scars. Iron Maiden, the egg-soaked ambush that shattered Ozzfest. It was supposed to be epic, 2 titans of British heavy metal, sharing the spotlight at Ozzfest 2005. Ozzy Osbourne and Iron Maiden. Fire, riffs, and thunder. But instead of harmony, the festival became a battlefield. The catalyst? Bruce Dickinson's mouth. The Iron Maiden frontman, famous for his sharp tongue, took repeated shots at the Osbournes, the MTV reality show that had rebranded Ozzy for a new generation. "We don't need cameras to stay relevant," he sneered on stage to a roaring crowd. Never mind that Sharon Osbourne was watching from the wings. According to crew reports, Sharon's face turned to stone. Then, in full fury, she hurled a wine glass across the green room and declared war. "I paid that bastard to stand on my stage," she snapped. "Now he spits in my face? Oh, he has no idea who he's dealing with." That night, the Osbournes orchestrated one of the most bizarre and theatrical revenge plots in rock history. In San Bernardino, thousands of raw eggs and AA batteries were discreetly handed out to strategically placed fans, many allegedly briefed by the Ozzfest team. As Iron Maiden took the stage, all hell broke loose. Eggs rained from the rafters. Bruce Dickinson, slipping in yoke, tried to power through. "We don't kneel to red-nailed managers," he shouted, eyes blazing. But it only got worse. Mid-performance of The Trooper, Iron Maiden's sound system mysteriously cut. Silence smothered the arena. Bruce hurled his microphone. Chaos erupted. Sharon, perched inside the control booth, reportedly leaned back and smiled. The next morning, Iron Maiden issued a public statement. "We are not puppets. We will never work with Ozzfest again." Sharon went on TV, unbothered. "Don't play with fire unless you want your face burned." From that moment forward, the 2 camps became sworn enemies. During rehearsals for Ozzy's Scream tour, a tech once played Run to the Hills. Ozzy stormed out, spat on the ground, and barked, "Turn that garbage off before I puke." Bruce Dickinson had crossed a sacred line, not just by mocking Ozzy, but by humiliating him on his own turf. Even when Ozzy announced his final retirement in 2020, Iron Maiden sent a tribute. But backstage, Bruce reportedly muttered to his bandmates, "People forget the smell of rotten eggs. I don't." Rumor has it Sharon still keeps one last unbroken egg in a locked vault. A memento. A warning. Kiss. Circus clowns in platform boots. Ozzy Osbourne didn't just dislike Kiss, he despised them. Behind their cartoonish makeup and pyrotechnic stage shows, he saw a betrayal of everything he believed rock should be. Raw, painful, unpolished truth. Their feud traces back to the early 70s. Black Sabbath was dark, haunting, soaked in suffering. Kiss? They were a comic book come to life. Face paint, tongue wagging, glitter, and dolls for sale in toy aisles. After one shared performance in Chicago, Ozzy reportedly turned to Tony Iommi, spat on the ground, and muttered, "I thought this was a music show, not a kid's costume party." That comment echoed through the industry and set the tone for a decades-long feud. The clash wasn't just about style, it was ideological. Ozzy saw rock as salvation through suffering. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, on the other hand, saw it as a business empire. At one drunken rant in 1982, Ozzy scoffed, "They sell everything but music. Take away the masks, and you've got a bar band with a fireworks budget." The breaking point came at a Casablanca Records party in 1981. Gene Simmons reportedly told Ozzy, "If you marketed yourself better, you wouldn't need booze to survive." Ozzy snapped, "I market pain. You market masks," he screamed in Simmons's face before security separated them. The bad blood never dried. In 1997, at the VH1 Rock Honors, Kiss was given the award for Greatest Visual Influence in Rock. Ozzy, sitting in the front row, mimed peeling off a mask and sticking out his tongue in mockery. When asked afterward if he had anything to say to Kiss, he growled, "I don't congratulate illusions." In his autobiography, I Am Ozzy, he described a band with masks, high heels, and karaoke vocals. He never named names, but readers didn't need to guess. Kiss, for their part, mostly avoided direct retaliation, but Gene Simmons couldn't help himself on talk shows. "We don't need to bite off bat heads to get attention," he once said. "We have music." A jab sharpened with smugness, and one Ozzy never forgot. In a 2010 interview, when asked if he'd ever consider a collaboration with Kiss, Ozzy glared at the camera and said, "When the sun rises in the west and Simmons stops selling memorabilia. Interview over." To Ozzy, Kiss didn't just sell out. They started there. The war for rock's soul. By now, it was clear. Ozzy Osbourne didn't hate bands because they were successful. He hated them because they betrayed what he saw as the very soul of rock: pain, sacrifice, chaos, and unfiltered emotion. Judas Priest, Bon Jovi, Iron Maiden, and Kiss had all, in his eyes, crossed the line into commercialism, ego, or insult. And Ozzy, who clawed his way up from factory floors and near-death overdoses, never let go of a grudge. Before his death, the Prince of Darkness left the world not just with music, but with a message. Real rock doesn't care about fame. It lives in the gutter, screams in the dark, and never bows to the mainstream. Stay tuned for Part 3 of Ozzy's Blacklist, featuring the final two names that dared to challenge him and paid the price. Behind the makeup, a war of worlds to millions, Kiss was pure rock theater. Fire, leather, face paint, and fireworks. But to Ozzy Osbourne, they were everything wrong with modern music. "It's not a band," he once scoffed. "It's a costume party with guitars." Their feud began in the early 1970s, when Black Sabbath was forging the heavy metal blueprint in the grim factories of Birmingham. Meanwhile, Kiss burst out of America like a rock and roll circus, glamorous, gimmicky, and tailor-made for mass consumption. Ozzy saw it not as creativity, but corruption. At a show in Chicago, Ozzy reportedly turned to Tony Iommi and spat, "I thought this was a music gig, not a kid's cartoon." That line, sharp and bitter, would echo for decades. While Gene Simmons was turning Kiss into a merchandising empire of lunchboxes and action figures, Ozzy was turning trauma into music. "They sell everything but music," he once raged. "Take away the masks. What's left?" Things came to a head at a Casablanca Records party in 1981. Gene Simmons allegedly told Ozzy, "If you marketed yourself better, you wouldn't need booze to survive." Ozzy snapped, "I market pain, you market masks." Security intervened, but the damage was done. In the years that followed, Ozzy refused to even tolerate Kiss. He hurled one of their records at a studio wall, snarling, "I'd rather listen to a fridge hum." At the 1997 VH1 Rock Honors, where Kiss was awarded for Greatest Visual Influence, Ozzy mimed pulling off a mask and sticking out his tongue in disgust. "I don't congratulate illusions," he later told reporters. In I Am Ozzy, he described a band with masks, high heels, and vocals like forced karaoke. He never said their name. He didn't have to. Gene Simmons fired back subtly, saying, "We don't need to bite off bat heads to get attention. We have music." The message was velvet-lined poison. By 2010, when asked if he'd ever share a stage with Kiss, Ozzy deadpanned, "When the sun rises in the west and Simmons stops selling memorabilia." That was Ozzy to the end. For him, rock was blood, not branding, fire, not flash. He didn't just dislike Kiss, he loathed what they represented, style over suffering, glitter over grit. And for that, they earned a permanent place on his blacklist. Guns N' Roses, from tourmates to enemies. At first, their alliance felt electric. In 1988, a recovering Ozzy launched his No Rest for the Wicked tour and extended an open hand to the hottest new act on the scene, Guns N' Roses. The media framed it as a torch-passing moment. Ozzy, the dark father of metal, giving a blessing to Hollywood's rising rebels. But within days, the fire turned to ash. It began with Axl Rose's notorious lateness. Guitarist Jake E. Lee later said, "Ozzy might have been chaos incarnate, but he was never late. He respected the crowd. Axl? He was like a comet, blazing, random, and reckless." On night 3, after waiting nearly 2 hours for Axl to emerge from his limo to recharge his spiritual energy, Ozzy lost it. Tour manager Tim Collins recalled Ozzy storming into Guns N' Roses backstage, eyes blazing. "You didn't just disrespect me," Ozzy roared at Axl. "You pissed in the face of the crowd and shat on the soul of rock and roll. I once bit a bat's head off, but I showed up on time." Slash tried to diffuse the tension. No use. Ozzy turned to the entire band and thundered, "Get off my tour! Get out of my sight before I turn you all into walking corpses." By morning, Guns N' Roses were gone. No press release, no statement, just silence and severed ties. As Guns N' Roses exploded into superstardom, Ozzy's disdain only deepened. In a 1992 interview, when asked about GNR's impact on rock, Ozzy muttered, "Some bands start out as wolves, then chew their own tails and become house pets for MTV." He never named names. He didn't need to. Things took a stranger turn in 1995 when Slash joined Ozzy for a brief collaboration. On the surface, things seemed smooth. But according to drummer Randy Castillo, Ozzy brought up Axl every single night. Once, mid-beer, he laughed and said, "People called me crazy, but next to that guy, I'm the Pope dipped in rose water." When GNR reunited in 2016, fans hoped for peace, maybe even a surprise show. Ozzy crushed the dream. "Reunions are for bands who ran out of gas," he told the BBC. "I never stopped. I've got nothing to go back to." During a 2018 Tokyo show, fans chanted, "Axl, Axl," as a joke. Ozzy stopped the music, grabbed the mic, and snarled, "Bring him here. I've got a few lessons on punctuality to teach him." But the root of Ozzy's fury ran deeper than egos or missed set times. To him, Guns N' Roses were actors, stage anarchists playing at rebellion. He saw himself as the real deal, someone who had lived through hell, clawed back from addiction, insanity, and death. Guns, in his eyes, were theatrics, and for Ozzy, that was the ultimate insult. Limp Bizkit, the breaking point. If there was one band that made Ozzy's blood boil hotter than any other, it was Limp Bizkit. The very first time he heard one of their tracks in the studio, he reportedly hurled his headphones at the wall and barked, "What the hell is this crap?" Everyone in the room froze. "This isn't music," he growled. "It's a damn joke." To Ozzy, Limp Bizkit was everything wrong with the direction rock was heading. Frat boy rage wrapped in backwards caps, lazy riffs, and hollow posturing. Fred Durst, the band's frontman, wasn't a rebel. He was, in Ozzy's words, a red-capped clown playing dress-up with a distortion pedal. The war came to a head in 1998 during Ozzfest. Durst, drunk on MTV fame, reportedly demanded a better slot and a private backstage area. When word got to Ozzy, he slammed the table during the production meeting and shouted, "Do they think this is Durst Fest? I built this festival with blood, not for some rap clown circus." Later, during Limp Bizkit's sound check, Ozzy stood silently in the wings. Then he spat on the floor and walked out. Sharon stood beside him, arms crossed. "They dance like monkeys," she whispered. "But where the hell's the music?" Word of the insult leaked. Durst, never one to back down, fired back on live radio. "I respect legends, but some people need to know when it's time to retire." Bad move. Ozzy, on tour in Europe, got the message. His manager said Ozzy smashed a guitar in the dressing room and muttered, "That punk wouldn't know metal if it bit him in the ass." Sharon struck next. Suddenly, Limp Bizkit was quietly dropped from 2 major UK tours. No explanation, just silence. Durst's phone calls stopped being returned. In 2001, when asked about the NU metal movement, Ozzy scoffed, "That's not metal. That's garbage mashed up by DJs and screaming. No soul. Just marketing." In 2019, a reporter asked if he saw nu metal as part of the genre's evolution. Ozzy stared into the distance and replied, "Some music movements should be buried deep underground, with the fools who call themselves artists just because they can tweak a bass line." That was the last nail in the coffin. The final message. Before stepping off stage forever, Ozzy Osbourne left more than a legacy. He left a warning, a challenge, a list of names that reminded the world what not to be. These 6 bands, Judas Priest, Bon Jovi, Iron Maiden, Kiss, Guns N' Roses, and Limp Bizkit, weren't just targets of bitterness. They were symbols of everything Ozzy refused to become. Why did he hold on to the hate? Because to Ozzy, rock was sacred. It wasn't a game. It wasn't for marketing or fame or fashion. It was pain, truth, fire from the soul. So ask yourself, do you believe in raw rock, the kind that bleeds, breaks, and screams the truth? If you do, you stand with a legend who never sold out, never backed down, and never forgave a fraud. Like, subscribe, and remember, never fake the fire. Ozzy wouldn't.